All right, guys, let's just hop right into it. I am so excited to be sharing with you guys about oils and emotions. So this is a topic that I'm really passionate about because I spent most of my life just feeling like emotions were a bad thing and that I needed to just like try not to have them and not to feel things and just be happy. And I don't know, it was a very toxic mindset that I had. And I've been learning how it's actually the opposite, and that it's so important how we actually process our emotions and take the time to deal with them, because otherwise they will manifest in other ways that are not healthy, and they can even lead to health problems. So it's really important. Some of you guys that are watching this are going through the Good Day Protocol Challenge with us. So we have been applying oils every day and using them to help process our emotions. And some of you guys may be new to oils or maybe use oils, but just looking for different new ways to use them. So yeah, I'm going to try and kind of hit on a little bit of everything. I'm not going to go too deep into the chemistry of oils because that's another class that I'll probably teach. But I am going to hit on some of the chemistry so that we can get into the science. One of the cool things that I've learned on my journey with essential oils is how we were actually designed to live in aromatherapy. If you think about it, back in the very beginning of time in the Bible, when God created Adam and Eve, he created them in a garden surrounded by trees and plants and within aromatherapy, and that was his perfect design. And so that gives us a big clue that aromatherapy is really important and really useful for our well-being. Aromatherapy is one of the most widely used, widely used methods for using essential oils. Since there is more like controversy around topically and internally applying oils, a lot of people are like most willing to use them in like aromatherapy form. So whenever we are looking at the chemistry of essential oils, you're going to find that there are two forms of metabolites that are inside of a plant. So the first form is like, we're not even going to touch on that, because the second form of metabolites are essential oils. And then from there, they are split into two categories. So I'm actually going to pull up and share my screen with you guys to show you a little bit about that. Oh, nope, just kidding. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing because actually I didn't create a graphic for that. I'm just going to talk about it. My bad. Okay, so it's split into two categories. First is terpenes, which is really more of the like physical side of essential oils when we're talking about using them for like head tension and for muscle relief and all of that stuff. That's going to be your terpenes, your monoterpenes, your sesquiterpenes. I can't even pronounce them. And then the second category are the phenylpropanoids. Now, the phenylpropanoids are the floral pigments, so what give them their color, and their fragrant compounds, so what give them their scent. And it also is the plant's defense against herbivores and other pests. So when we are talking about aromatherapy, we are talking about the phenylpropanoids inside of essential oils. Essential oils are fat soluble, so this is really important because that means they are actually the same chemistry as the structure of our blood, and so that's why they absorb so quickly into our skin, because they're the same chemical structure as our blood, so our bodies just absorb them and they go straight into our bloodstream, and then they go into our brains. Another important little bit of information about essential oils is that because the molecules inside of essential oils are so small, they can actually pass the blood-brain barrier, which is really important because we're talking about how essential oils affect our brains. So in order for them to really get the job done, they need to be able to pass the blood-brain barrier, which they can. Okay, so that's kind of like the chemistry behind it, and we're going to jump more into the science of specifically aromatherapy and our emotions. So we have 5 senses, and our first 4 senses, touch, taste, sight, hearing, those are all connected to our frontal lobe, which is the intellectual side of our brain. So we first process the touch, the sound, the there's only 4 of them. You think I'd remember them. But we process those 4 senses through the logical part of our brain first, and then we process them through the emotional part of our brain. So it's not that you cannot experience emotions from hearing a song you grew up listening to or like touching a certain texture, but whenever we have those sensations, they go through the logical part of our brain first, and our brain like decides, okay, you know, this is what we're touching, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're hearing, and then it goes to the emotional part of our brain. But the interesting thing is that our last sense, which is our sense of smell, is directly connected to the emotional side of our brain, our limbic system, which is what helps us form our feelings and connects it to our emotions and all of that good stuff. So what that means is that our olfactory system, which is our sense of smell, is directly connected to our limbic system, which is our emotional center of our brain. So now I'm going to share my screen again and show you guys what our brains look like. Okay, so our sense of smell, our olfactory system, is the only sense directly connected to our limbic system, the seat of our emotions. Our sense of smell is also the only sense that is open to our central nervous system. And so our sense of smell is really, really powerful, obviously. That is why, like, sometimes if you smell something, you might experience like a rush of memories and emotions, like the smell of freshly baked cookies, or if something smells like your grandma or something like that, you might have a flood of emotions, which unlike our other senses, whenever we smell something, we process it emotionally and then logically. So here is kind of an a diagram, okay, there you go, of what our limbic system looks like. So it's made up of the hypothalamus, the amygdala, the hippocampus, and right here, this little purple part right here, that is our olfactory bulb. So it's not connected, like it's not a part of the limbic system, but it is directly connected to it. And so this breaks down just some different points of what the limbic system does. It controls our emotions such as fear and aggression. It controls our basic drives such as hunger and sex drive, and it helps form episodic memories. So this is where a lot of like our memories are connected with our emotions as well. And our hypothalamus actually monitors blood levels, our glucose, it releases hormones and our blood pressure and our heart rate. So our limbic system is really, really powerful for our bodies in general. Our limbic system also triggers the release of serotonin and endorphins, which are the good feeling hormones in our body. So that's also a reason why if you were to smell something and just immediately feel good, is because it passes through our olfactory bulb and then goes straight to where our body produces those good feel uh, hormones. There you go. Okay, so that is basically what it looks like inside our brains whenever we inhale essential oils. It's pretty cool because that is, that just means it's like really, really effective, okay? So our senses depict how we see the world around us, and we create these sensory impressions, which would basically lead you then to conclude that our worldview is really shaped by the like sensory impressions that we're taking in all around us. And if essential oils can affect that sensory impression from smell, it can help adjust our worldview. And we'll get a little bit more into what that looks like as far as our emotions connected to our thoughts and our beliefs. Okay. I opened the chat box and I don't know how to close it. There we go. Okay. Another thing I wanted to touch on is that this is the part of our brain that is affected whenever we experience trauma. And if you don't know, I don't really know like the full science of it, but I know that whenever we experience something traumatic, our brains create like a pathway, and it actually creates like a physical pathway in our brain, kind of like the ditches on the side of the road. Like it creates like a divot in our brain. So whenever we experience anything that reminds us of that trauma, that triggers us, if you hear that word a lot nowadays, whenever we're triggered, our brains go right back into that pathway that we created through that trauma, through whatever event happened. And so it's really amazing because when we use essential oils, we can actually help our brains to create new pathways, and we can use them when we're being triggered or when we are struggling with certain memories to help create a new pathway that is healthier. So other studies of the brain have shown that essential oils can actually change our brain waves as well, which is really important. So this is a brain mapping study that was done. I'm going to show you guys a little bit about brain waves. So we have 5 different types of brain waves: gamma waves, beta waves, alpha waves, theta waves, and delta waves. So the faster our brain waves are going, the higher mental capacity we'll have. And then as they slow down, it is in conjunction with our body slowing down, not being as attentive. And then as you continue to slow your brain waves down, that leads you into like a deep sleep or fully unconscious. So brain mapping studies have shown that inhalation of essential oils can change our brain waves. Some examples would be lavender. It slows down our brain waves and promotes relaxation. It helps get us to these alpha waves. And these alpha waves are where we can be the most creative. So frankincense is another one that slows down our brain waves and promotes creativity. Whereas if you were to inhale lemon or peppermint, they would actually speed up your brain waves and allow you to concentrate and focus better, or open up to listen more. So that is one of the ways that oils interact with our brains, is adjusting our waves, our brain waves. Another way that essential oils affect our brains is through frequencies. So if you didn't know, everything around us is basically electromagnetic frequencies. Every substance on Earth has a frequency, and the higher your frequency, the better your mood and the healthier you are. The lower your frequency, the worse your mood will be, as well as the less healthy you will be. And so this is where the ideas of like good vibes and good energy come from, because of our frequencies. And so whenever we, for instance, like if we were to eat fast food or be listening to something really negative. That's actually going to lower our frequency, which can actually make us less healthy, and it's going to dampen our mood. And so when we inhale essential oils, we can raise our frequency, and that will boost our mood as well as help boost our immune system and so many other aspects of our bodies. So yeah, essential oils actually have some of the highest frequencies. Actually, they have the highest frequencies of anything on earth. Idaho blue spruce and rose are the two highest frequency substances on earth. So I've been told, I do not have rose essential oil, but I've been told if you were to inhale rose or apply it, like you just get this immediate, like almost high, like it just is like so like impactful to your mind and your emotions and everything. I haven't experienced it yet, but someday I will. So that's another way that essential oils affect our bodies. One thing that I absolutely love is that our emotional health is biblical. In Proverbs 14:30, it says, "A sound heart is the life of the flesh, but envy creates rottenness of the bones." And Proverbs 17:22 says, "A merry heart doeth good like medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones." Another scripture that talks about specifically oil would be Psalm 45:7-8, that says, "You love righteousness and hate wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness more than your companions. All your garments are scented with myrrh and aloes and cassia," which are all essential oils. Aloes is sandalwood, and then myrrh and cassia are essential oils as well. "Out of the ivory palaces by which they have made you glad." So it is very biblical that taking care of our emotional health is directly connected to our physical health. And we also see that backed up by modern day science as well. Okay. I don't want to get lost. But yeah, that brings me back to the point that physical, emotional, and mental health are all connected. For every emotion that we experience, there is actually a corresponding hormonal release. So if you were to experience a feeling of stress or anxiety, your body would release cortisol, which is our stress hormone. Now, we all need cortisol in our bodies to some extent, but too much cortisol will actually cause health problems that are much unwanted. So oils don't actually mask our emotions, but they give us the chance to really work through our emotions and our feelings, and that helps us to release any negative emotions, which ultimately are the best thing that we can do for our health. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between feelings and emotions. This is something I've learned recently that I just thought was super fascinating. I never really thought of it this way, but there is a difference between feelings and emotions. So I'm going to show you guys another graphic. Please feel free to take a screenshot of these so that you can refer back to them. Okay, so feelings are to perceive or to be aware of through thought, bodily reactions, instinct, etc., having a sensation, impression, or reaction, inward expression, and that encompasses as well our thoughts. While emotions are a strong surge of feeling marked by an impulse to outward expressions, any strong feeling such as love, hate, or joy. Outward expression as evidence of inward sensation. So feelings are what we are experiencing on the inside, in our thoughts and our mind, and emotions are when we actually act upon those feelings. So I have a little like chart here. It starts off as a feeling and it goes into our thoughts, then it becomes an emotion, and then it becomes a belief, and it comes out in our words. So beliefs are established in our psyche as a result of the conclusions we unknowingly establish from the experiences our feelings and thoughts bring to us. So this is really important because we know the Bible talks about renewing our minds and, just believing the truth of who God is and letting that renew our minds. And so as we do not process our feelings, our thoughts, or take our thoughts captive, and they become emotions, and we start to believe them, it's going to affect every part of our lives. I really love this quote from a book that I'm going to recommend to you guys in a second, but it says, "Take a little time to listen to the words you say. If you hear yourself saying something 3 times, write it down. It has become a pattern for you. At the end of the week, look at the list you've made and you'll see how your words fit your experiences. Be willing to change your words and thoughts and watch your life change. The way you control your life is to control your choice of words and thoughts. No one thinks in your mind but you." And I feel like this is just really powerful because it speaks to what we know from the Bible, that we need to take every thought captive, and that we need to renew our minds by the truth of the Word of God. And so, if we aren't taking those feelings and thoughts captive, they can become life controlling issues, and then it can create even different problems in our health. And so for those of us that have been doing the Good Day Protocol, we've been speaking affirmations and scriptures while we use our oils every day. And that is really, really huge because you're able to connect the oils to a belief and through words. So we kind of work backwards. We apply the oils, we speak truth, and we start to believe it. Then our emotions and our thoughts and our feelings will follow. So that is one way that we use oils to help process our feelings and emotions, by just speaking truth over ourselves. Okay, so yeah, some books that I want to suggest, I haven't actually read them, but I'm really interested to read them, and I've heard a lot of good things, and so that's why I'm suggesting them, just as something to look into. A More Excellent Way, Be in Health by Henry W. Wright. Feelings Buried Alive Never Die, which I think is where that last quote is from. Who Switched Off My Brain, and Heal Your Body. These are not specific to essential oils, but they address the issue of how our emotions affect our physical health. So an example of feelings that could be the root cause of something physical would be some feelings that might be connected to adrenal problems. This is just the example that I found. And it says, feels defeated, feels like a victim, no belief in self, don't care what happens to me attitude, lack of courage, feelings of anxiety, misusing the will, subconscious belief that life must have burdens, being disloyal to self, unresolved jealousies and fears, feels that one must struggle for success, power, or position. So these are just some examples of feelings that have been connected and found to be related to adrenal problems. There are definitely a lot of resources out there that you can look into for addressing maybe some feelings that could be causing physical health problems. There's an app called Healing Feelings that has a lot of resources for different physical ailments that might be caused by an emotion that has not been processed properly. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to address with you guys is this really cool protocol from Psalm 51, King David's protocol for emotional release. And as we go through this, I'm going to just share some different oils that you could use alongside of it, and just read out these scriptures to us. So the first step to emotional release from Psalm 51 would be to identify. We know that King David loved the Lord, but he had a lot of issues. He dealt with lust and anger and guilt. So it says in Psalm 51, 3-4, "For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. Against you, you only have I sinned and done this evil in your sight." And verse 6 says, "Behold, you desire truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part you will make me to know wisdom. Sometimes we can forget the things that we're holding on to, and God can show us. In 2 Corinthians 10:5, it says, casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. So that's something we've been talking about, that it's important that we take every thought captive. A question we can ask is, does this thought line up with the word of God? Um, and we can refer back to, again, Romans 12:2, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So from there, we need to renew our minds. And so we use these scriptures to help identify the emotional issue that we need to release. And then from there, we want to anoint. So in Psalm 51:7, it says, purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. What's really cool about this scripture is that in biblical times, they actually believed that hyssop um, would help with immoral sin. And we have found now in recent studies that hyssop can actually be used for addiction. And so David knew he was making that connection with his immoral sin, and God was like, yes, I can. Like, it's just crazy how God made every plant with this greater purpose. It's amazing. So for us, that might mean grabbing a few different blends. There's a blend called Release, Forgiveness, Joy, or Harmony. Those would all be good oils to grab in this process. The third step would be to release. So we need to release and give it to the Lord. In Psalm 51:14, it says, deliver me from the guilt of bloodshed, O God, the God of my salvation. He knew if he gave it to God, he would be released from the bondage. In 1 Peter 5:7, it says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. And I just put down here this beautiful prayer of release. And it says, God, I hand this over to you. I am choosing to release this which does not serve me in a healthy and positive way. And then the last thing is to speak life. So whenever we go through something, whenever we let go of something that's negative that we've held inside, there's now a void there. So it's important that we don't pick that thing back up or fill it with something else that's negative, but instead we need to fill it. The opposite of anger and fear is love. So speak scriptures about love and speak life. Speak out the positive feelings that you want to grab hold of in its place. Psalm 51:14-15 says, and my tongue shall sing aloud of your righteousness, O Lord. Open my lips, and my mouth shall show forth your praise. And then in verse 10, it says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. So I just love this example because I had never thought of Psalm 51 in this way, that David was really speaking out and releasing this issue he had and asking the Lord to replace it with something godly. And I just love that. The last thing before we finish up, because we only have a few more minutes left before Zoom cuts us off, I do have a list of some other oils that might be useful for our emotional health, and some oils that are like specific for certain feelings. So make sure to take a screenshot of this one too. One that I absolutely love, I actually have a testimony with this one, is Surrender. And it can be used to release inhibitions that may control life or limit potential, surrender aggression or controlling attitude. And this oil is actually one that I used recently I like to use it during my devotional time. And as I used it during that devotional, the Lord prompted me to confess a sin that I really needed to confess. And I mean, I just never knew with like such certainty that I had to do it. And I just really believe that using that oil really helped me to hear the Holy Spirit more clearly and release what was holding me back from making that confession, which that sin was holding me back in life. And so I just, when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I experienced just recently. Forgiveness is another one. Release hurt feelings and negative emotions to move past all emotional barriers, supports behavioral change, and helps you forgive yourself for emotional barriers that are holding you back. The rest here is just a list of feelings that you may experience and oils that can be useful for those feelings. So definitely take a screenshot of these. I have a lot of these already, so I'm really excited to try them out in different scenarios. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I just wanted to open up for the last 5 minutes. If you guys do have any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself and you can ask any questions that you have. I'll just give it a minute. So.
Do you recommend to diffuse or to put it on yourself?
So I definitely recommend doing a mixture of both. I personally like to, when I'm using oils for emotions, put them in the palm of my hand and then just like rub it together and inhale it that way, and then just like rub the remainder on my neck or on my wrists. It's definitely great to diffuse them if you can, like if you're just sitting somewhere and you have a diffuser next to you. But they're going to work either way, but I think that it is really powerful when you inhale them. So even if you just need to grab the bottle and just like huff it straight from the bottle, that's a really effective way. I just always encourage people to take like some time, even if it's just 30 seconds, to take some deep breaths, just speak truth, whatever that might be that applies to your situation in the moment, and just quiet yourself, because I really feel like if we don't give the oils like a chance to do what they're designed to do in our minds, if we just keep going on with our life, it's probably not going to be as effective.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so if you guys don't have any other questions, I think that's pretty much it, everything that I wanted to share. Thank you guys so much for checking this out, and please feel free to message me if you do have a question.
Thanks, Sophia. You did so good.
Oh,
There's a lot of information.
I love all of this
stuff. Screenshots.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, well, I'm just really thankful for you guys being here. And for those of you that are in the Good Day Protocol Challenge, we'll be talking even more on all of this stuff, and just like continuing to use oils. And Victoria, thank you so much for coming. Yeah, okay. Feel free to message me right now if you have. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.